Of the controversial Rock River Academy for teenage girls respond to our investigation about the horrors behind the facility's walls.
They're defending the actions of staff who they say were often confronted with violence while being badly understaffed. Eyewitness News reporter Alexis McAdams joins us with more. Alexis.
Nick, Christie, when we started this investigation, we reached out to both Rock River Academy officials and their workers union, asking them to respond to former patient allegations. Both declined to be interviewed, but since our story ran, some workers have now stepped forward, saying the horrible picture the girls we spoke with painted doesn't tell the whole story.
So you think that all the girls are lying?
I think that they're misinterpreting the situation.
Angelia Babcock is a former worker at Rock River Academy who wanted to speak out after seeing our in-depth investigation into the facility. Women who were housed in Rock River as teens telling us about girls being physically and sexually abused and even going into prostitution.
The staff was having sex with whoever they could have sex with, who was vulnerable. They'd bring the girls snacks, candies, cakes, whatever the girls wanted, weed, cigarettes.
Hearing the stories in these accounts from these girls, do you believe them?
You know, from the time that I was there, I can say that I did see some things that probably shouldn't happen.
But Babcock wants people to know that the vast majority of the staff at Rock River was caring and were doing their best while chronically understaffed.
Management was bringing in more girls, more residents, and not hiring more staff, so we were running completely understaffed to where it wasn't safe for us staff either.
You would have sometimes 2 people in one area with 10 to 13 girls at one time.
Gaetano Canzaneri is another former Rock River worker.
Don't point at the employees. Not 100% of stuff was employees. That was just a few that just seemed to not care.
He admits to overhearing girls at the facility talking of sexual abuse by some workers, but says they would not confide in him.
I can't really account exactly whether it was touching or whatever, but they were talking about how this person had done some sexual stuff with them, but again, they wouldn't tell a name.
They both say the girls housed at Rock River were often violent and difficult to control. Canzaneri adds that most staff members who tried to help the girls also felt undercut by those who didn't.
There were some of them that tried to help, but there were some of them that were just like, these girls, they were taken from their families or whatever by cops and DCFS and stuff, and there's nothing we can do to really change that.
Workers say some of the injuries reported inside of the facility happened when the residents were restrained.
What we'd basically do is take your arm like this, one of us would step like this, and just like that.
Both blame administrators who they say, for whatever reason, really did not seem to care about the troubled girls who were sent there.
I think it's more or less the girls felt caged because of the lack of staff.
Rock River officials issued a statement saying the facility will close but refused our request for an on-camera interview. That invitation to give their side remains open. Christy, Nick?
I would love to hear some of those responses, you know?
I would.
It's amazing that at some point nobody thought, you know what, we got to call the cops in this situation, you know?
Look into it.
Interesting. All right, Alexis, thank you.
All right, get ready for a